Good morning, everyone, and happy birthday. This is May 19th, Swami Kriyananda's birthday. It's the anniversary of his birthday. He's now passed from this world since 2013. He passed away before his birthday. But this is the anniversary of the day that he incarnated in 1926. So let us begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master, Paramhansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, dearest friend Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow to you all. Show us the way to follow in your footsteps, to live with devotion and courage, to serve all, to give to all the joy of your presence, that by serving thee, we become a channel for thy light. In being a channel for thy light, we become thy light. We are your very own. Receive us. Om. Peace. Amen. Swamiji's Moksha Day, the day that he passed from this world, is April 21st. His birthday now on May 19th puts these two really significant events in his incarnation right within a few weeks of each other. The third event would be September 12th, when he came to Yogananda and was initiated as a disciple on that day. Birth, initiation, birth, spiritual birth, and then liberation. I mean, his passing from this world was a moksha. Moksha means complete freedom. And so it's really quite a trio of celebrations. I was trying to think, because already this morning, I'm speaking to you at 9 o'clock from California, but because Ananda is global, and because the internet puts us all in the same place at the same time, by 9 o'clock in California, already India and Europe are well advanced in their day of celebrations, and so many people have already been expressing themselves, singing songs, writing poems, playing instruments, leading meditations, visualizations, just an extraordinary celebration. It reminds me, of course, on a smaller scale, but you can see the direction. On Christmas morning, for years, one of the things we've done here in Palo Alto is we lead a service that is really for families, really for children, and explaining the Christmas story. And I try to explain to the children that Jesus was passed from this earth 2,000 years ago, and his birthday party is still the biggest birthday party that anybody holds. And here we are, we're celebrating Jesus's birthday. And I talk to the children and say, when it's your birthday, you get to decide what's going to happen. You get to choose the food, you get to have, you invite all your friends, you get to decide what games you're going to play. So everything on your birthday is focused toward what makes you happy. So this being Jesus's birthday party, Christmas morning, we have to do what he would enjoy. And so then I talk to them about kindness and love, and devotion to God, and all of the virtues that Jesus exemplified, and every great master exemplifies, with a little bit of shift of perspective according to their own, the vibration of their own incarnation, the needs of the people at the time, the culture, the language, all these things influence. They don't change the essential nature of the divine vibration, but they color it. They give it a color and a shape and a form. So I'm just trying to think in general, both at the present. At the present, the reach of Swami Kriyananda's life, which is really the reach of Yogananda's life through him, because from the moment he met Yogananda, there was no Kriyananda in existence outside of his discipleship. Once he became a disciple, his life's purpose was set. And everything that he did out of the inspiration that Master passed through him, so that always he was expressing that vibration, not himself. And in the course of these 50 years since Ananda started, a little longer than that since Swami became a disciple, Ananda has manifested to a very impressive degree, especially for those of us who were there at the beginning, and it was just a ragtag group of well-meaning but rather colorful figures on essentially a bare piece of land, just trying to put together something tangible out of the vibrations of Master that Swami was continually channeling to us. But when you think about how the lives of these great saints radiate and radiate and radiate for uh, centuries after their physical form has passed, whatever we see now is just the tiny tip of the iceberg. And I have that belief that Master's work and Swami's contribution to it will have that kind of impact. Whether names are known or books are remembered are less important, because the way the world is shifted is by the power of vibration emanating from the divine source, and all those souls who who are in tune with that vibration receive it in their own consciousness, and then it becomes their consciousness. So you can't really say that this is where Master begins, ends, and Swami starts. This is where Swami ends, and Jyotish starts. This is where Jyotish ends, and whoever comes after starts. Because what it is every individual in that chain, by their own spiritual effort, erases those qualities that make them distinct and separate. The more they erase the qualities that make them separate, which is like, it's like film on the glass. You scrub it off, but your sadhana is like the elbow grease that scrubs off the film on the glass so that the pure light of spirit can come through. It's exactly the way we see it. Everything in the physical world is a symbol. On a sunny day, the sunlight will stream through your window. But if there's something obscuring the window, the sunlight can't get through. Sunlight is exactly the same, but the obscuration on the window makes it seem like there isn't sunlight. You do the work to get that off, and all of a sudden the sunlight streams through again. And then one says, oh, what a beautiful window. And what makes the beautiful window is that it has become invisible. And so the power of these masters, the power of Swamiji, and Master through him, because that's all he was just a window for his guru. And it's very important to realize that Master himself considered himself to be just a window for his guru, both for Sri Yukteswar and even more deeply for Babaji. Master, that's what Master was doing in this world. In answer to questions sometimes, why are you doing it this way? He said, because that's the way Babaji wants it done. And Yogananda was constantly referring back to Sri Yukteswar in an effort to express our devotion to Master, or even our devotion to Swamiji. We act as if the source of what inspires us is that individual form. But again, the greatness of Swamiji was his non-existence, was that he had erased all the obscuring energy so that Master's vibration could pass through. And Master's greatness was that he had erased Yogananda, his own words. I killed Yogananda long ago. No one dwells in this temple now but God. And that was pure humility, because there was no self to be proud. The self was simply gone, and humility is self-honesty. I killed Yogananda long ago. I am a pure window. Swami himself at the end of his life said, I can no longer tell where I end and Master begins. He said that the unity of consciousness has become so complete. I think that was true throughout his whole life, but he was willing to articulate it at the end of his life in that way. So I have to ask, if you think that the incarnation of a master, that the life he lived is an example, absolutely, and it makes concrete the abstraction of what it means to live for God. And therefore, the life and the stories and the example and the thoughts and the words and the writing and the poetry and the music and the photographs and the look in the eye and the legends, all of that are essential for us to get a grasp of what it looks like. Otherwise, our own ideas are ill-informed for the most part, well-meaning but ill-informed, because we can only imagine what we can imagine. There's a marvelous phrase in this master's poem Samadhi. He talks about Samadhi, the state of cosmic consciousness of oneness with God, as enjoyable beyond imagination of expectancy. It's just a brilliant use of words. Enjoyable beyond imagination of expectancy. Even our greatest imagining can't lift us to what our real destiny is. So God takes this visible form, as Master did, and then Swami as his disciple, because when we see a consciousness in a human body stepping into this world, growing up through childhood, going through the confusion of adolescence, coming into adulthood, in Swami's case, being a truth seeker, finding his guru, dedicating himself to his guru, and then in a life of power and force and commitment and willpower and absolute integrity, to carry out his guru's will. Oh, that's what it looks like. And it's very important for us to see it. Otherwise, we aim too low. We become sort of nice or not as terrible as the people around us. And we actually think that we've accomplished something until you have a life like Yogananda and a life like Kriyananda, where the power and the beauty and what I was going to say was the unrelenting love, the love and commitment to the welfare of the world, to friendship, to caring for people. It never ceases, ever, just simply never ceases. And then it tells us what we must do by holding in front of us what we will become. In the life of Jesus, too, the stories of the life of Jesus, we just tell them over and over again, and they never grow tiresome. Just the water into wine, the loaves and fishes multiplied, the raising of Lazarus, the healing of the blind man, very dramatic stories for his time and place. Swami's stories and Master's stories are more persevering against the obstacles of the world to accomplish. But nonetheless, the power is exactly the same. So you have the incarnation, and we're celebrating the birthday. And you have the life. And I personally watched a great deal of that life. And I always want to say, because I feel, this morning in her visualization, Devi said, we should give to Swamiji for his birthday whatever we can give. This is what he asked me to do. He asked me to put into words what I witnessed. But what I also have to think about is how many people will live their lives inspired by Swami who never see the physical form, who never witnessed it. So we have to understand that something completely other is going on here. Swamiji had an interesting characteristic. He said sometimes people would ask him to tell stories about Master. And when you would say, "Tell me a story about Master," Swamiji said usually his mind would go blank. He just couldn't think of anything. But when he was trying to help people understand how to grow closer to God, his mind would be flooded with examples from Master's life. And he said it was almost as if Master didn't exist even for Swamiji, outside of Master's service to humanity and his deep love that caused him to incarnate. In the Festival of Light every week, which we do on Sundays as our ritual, um, this little bird represents the soul's long journey from delusion to freedom. And it goes through 4 stages. And introducing the 4th stage of its evolution, greater can no love be than this, from a life of infinite joy and freedom in God, willingly to embrace limitation, pain, and death for the salvation of mankind. Such ever has been the sacrifice of the great masters for the world. Here then is the 4th and last stage of the soul's long journey, the redemption. Willing, when I was talking to Swamiji on the phone once, and he was expressing an eagerness for this incarnation to complete itself. His physical body was very tiresome by that point. He had done an enormous amount of work. He'd suffered through many of the heartaches, deep heartaches that human life can give. And he was looking forward to the time when Master would call him out of the body. He had absolutely no fear of death. There was nothing in death to fear. Death was just walking out of the body into the next room in your spirit form. And he was saying that once he departed from this world in moksha, that the inclination to come back was not there. And then he said, the only thing, of course, that would draw me back would be to help all of you. I said, sir, that's the only reason you came this time also. And he said, well, yes, there is that. And he sort of looked down to the side a little bit. Because that is true. I wrote in this book, I believe he was Jivan Mukta. To have moksha in this incarnation, you have to be already very free. I never saw ego in Swamiji. And I never saw him draw any situation to himself. I never saw him, and I don't say this lightly, this is not hyperbole. I never saw him make a decision based on personal preference, personal need, the desire for self. It wasn't that he disciplined himself not to do it. I can discipline myself not to do it much of the time, except for the subconscious ones I don't know about. But for Swami, there was no inclination to do so. There was simply no self to protect, as simple as that. I remember once when circumstances conspired to cause him to make an international declaration about his own life and what he was going to do and what was going to happen. And because declarations at that time were made through print media, the declaration was made, but by the time it actually was received by the world, the entire situation that he was declaring had completely blown up. And he was made to look the fool. There was really no other word for it. And I remember we were sitting in the living room and we had these magazines in front of us that, the deadline was like 3 months before the thing was published, or 2 months. And in those 2 months, everything had collapsed. And Swami just looked at the small group of people in the room and he said, this is actually a very embarrassing situation. He said, I could be quite embarrassed by this. He said, but I choose not to be. I mean, what is there to be embarrassed about? There has to be a self to protect. And Swamiji had no self to protect. Greater can no love be than this. From a life of infinite joy and freedom in God, willingly to embrace this whole reality just for the salvation of mankind. But what we're working with is a personality personifying an infinity. But the human mind needs examples. We need examples just sort of to show us how to think. In this book that I wrote, it could be, you could write just story after story. And many books about saintly souls are written that way. This book is at least half, I've not counted, Swamiji's own words. How did he think about what he was doing? How did he understand what he was doing? How did he feel guidance? How do you feel guidance? How do you reconcile the heart, the mind, and the spirit? Because long after his body is gone, I believe he'll be remembered for a very long time. But what the importance of his life was that the principles he exemplified become the principles that we exemplify. And the more concrete it can be, oh, he faced heartbreak, he faced betrayal, Master faced extraordinary economic problems, Master's own guru passed away, and then he had to go on without that. Swami's guru passed away after 3.5 years, and Swami was only 26, and he lived till 87. And he had to be in tune with his guru that whole time and convey to us the possibility of that same attunement. How do we live according to these principles? So everything about Swami's life, as entertaining and as marvelously fun as it could be, Swamiji's sense of humor was so delightful. I've written this in a book somewhere also, but Swamiji, he liked to tease, but in a sweet way. His teasing was never unkind, but he was very informal and very friendly and very sweet. And he was teasing me about something. We were just having fun. We were just laughing, and I was playing along with it. And I became very pouty, and I said, "Swamiji, you're making fun of me." Swami got very grave all of a sudden, and he would do that sometimes when something that you thought was appropriate was just slightly inappropriate for some reason or another. Often one didn't know. Maybe one wasn't sensitive, maybe one had spoken an untruth, maybe just somehow. So whenever Swami would go somewhat grave like that in the middle of a situation, you would always sort of stop for a second. So I said, "You're making fun of me." He became very grave. Then he spoke quite seriously, as if this was really something very important to understand. "No," he said, "I'm not actually making fun of you. I'm merely taking advantage of the fun which is already present." It was so perfect. And it was so, I don't know, the phrase I use sometimes is vintage Kriyananda. And it was a great joke, and it was great to be there when he was making such a joke, but it was the fact that he would joke. That's the principle we have to take into ourselves. We have to realize that taking advantage of the fun which is already there is actually a divine principle, because the fun is always there. That was Swamiji's actual answer when it was I who asked him, "Swamiji, what is the mission of Ananda?" I asked him that about 1977 or something like that in a satsang that we were having. He said, "To have fun." Just like that, to have fun. And the whole room started laughing because, I had asked this big, important question, to have fun. And then he just let us laugh for a little while, because why not? And then he said, "But of course you have to understand what we think of as fun." He said, "It's to experience Divine Mother in your heart and then share the joy of her presence with everyone." And that's the deepest kind of fun, isn't it? And that's the fun we should always take advantage of. So fortunately with Swamiji, we have a treasure trove. We don't have to just have 4 little Gospels of Jesus and then an occasional other one that just kind of surfaces from somewhere, where we try to piece together what he must have been like. And sometimes you read the Gospels, as Swami said, and you realize that must have been a joke, because some of the things he said, are just like, unfortunately, my mind blanks for an example, but Jesus was very robust, and he must have been fun. He must have been taking advantage of the fun that was there, or else no one would follow him. The single characteristic of these masters is this overwhelming sense of joy. because that's what draws us. We just don't want to stand around and weep for our sins and for the sins of everyone else. I mean, how long can you do that before you need a break? And so everything that Swami did, and that's why Swami said when he wanted to explain a principle, then Master's life would flood into his mind, and he could think of story after story to express this principle and that principle. But when it was just to glorify the personality, Swami said his mind went blank. Isn't that interesting? Because there is a purpose here. And long after all of us are off this planet, I believe that the power set in motion by Swamiji, of Master through Swamiji, the way I wrote it in the introduction to this book, Swamiji single-handedly explained the whole culture of self-realization. If God realization is the goal of life, how should we raise our children? How should we educate them? What should we do about earning money? Where should we live? What kind of buildings should we live in? What does the music sound like? Should we paint? Should we express ourselves? What about dancing? Just like you ask every question. In actuality, Swami answered every question he could think of. And in many cases, he wrote a book about it. How to be a woman, how to be a man, secrets for men, secrets for women, secrets of happiness, secrets of peace, secrets of emotional healing. Ask a question somewhere in the enormous body of work that Swami gave us, whether it's a song, a poem, a chant, whatever it might be, it's there. The whole culture of self-realization. If God realization is the goal, what does life look like? Right now, almost no one cares. There's this tiny little group of people. I sort of feel like the number of devotees in the world is like one pat of butter spread over the whole planet. I mean, like that's how thin the layer it is. I mean, I have a lot of friends who all feel like me, so we feel like a big crowd, but we're just a tiny, tiny little group. But when ordinary life proves itself to be as unsatisfactory as it is, and then the consciousness is ready to think there must be an alternative. And when the devotee is ready, God responds, and something comes to us. And what I think will happen on a massive scale, and this isn't just my opinion, this is how Master and Swami have described the rising Dwapara. Right now, our civilization our globe is on an interesting cusp. I don't think it's going to be as quick and easy as I would hope for it to be, but I think many individuals are going to be knocked over the edge of there has to be another way. If the goal of life is not pleasure and ease and money and status and security in the world, and the purpose of life is inner growth, how do I raise my children? How do I educate them? How do I have a marriage? How do I be a man? How do I be a woman? What about art, music, dancing? Swami's done it all. So when the individual wakes up, or God willing, the whole society wakes up, I think we'll turn. We'll turn toward this power that Master, through Swamiji and many others, have put in the world. And it's the sunlight. And it's just shining through the window. And gradually we're going to clean off. And that's going to come to us. And our job is really simple. Do the best we can. The power of the individual attuned with the divine is literally infinite. And that's how the world is shifted. That's how we are changed. That's how everyone around us is changed. That's how the light spreads. One by one by one. Each of us is one. Let us accept the gift, the birthday gift of Swami's life, and let us give back of our own selves the simple effort. Clean the window. Clean the window of your mind, of your heart, and of your spirit, so that the sunlight can come in and reach us and pass through to all who would receive it. God bless you.